Hi, this is Kathy Obrushansky from Scott County Schools, and this is your ESL training. Let's dive in. In 2012 is a federal mandate, so ESL programs are Title III, meaning that they are paid for and controlled by the federal government, just like special ed. Let's look at some basic terms. ESL, or English as a Second Language, is the program. EL, or ELL, is the learner. That stands for English Language Learner. Sometimes these students are referred to as bilingual or multilingual learners. LTEL is long-term EL. This is when they have been in the program for 7 years or more. When a student tests out of the ESL program, they then are placed in a transition program for 4 years. So you have the T1, 2, 3, and 4. NELB stands for Non-English Language Background. So perhaps a student's first language is not English, but when they took the screener, it showed that they did not need ESL services. And ILP stands for Individual Learning Plan. So similar to an IEP in the special ed program, an ILP serves the needs of ESL students. ELPA 21 is a consortium that creates assessment and limited professional development. Tennessee changed vendors from WIDA to ELPA 21. ELPA 21 assessments include a screener given to students when they first enroll in a U.S. school. ELs are also administered an annual summative test. Teachers must provide ELs with equal access to the curriculum through accommodations and scaffolds. A team of stakeholders determines the accommodations and lists them in the student's ILP. So let's look at some of these accommodations. Graphic organizers, concrete manipulatives, extended time and breaks, peer tutoring, text-to-speech, which is in many of our textbooks now as well as in our IXL, and bilingual dictionaries. These would be appropriate for students if they can read and write in their first language. ELPA has only 10 standards, and they are designed for collaborative use by ESL, ELD, and content area teachers. Tennessee ELD standards align with ELPA 21 standards, and if you'd like to refresh your knowledge, you can do so at the following email address. ELPA 21 recognizes 5 English proficiency levels: beginning, early intermediate, early advanced, and advanced. The overall proficiency is categorized by emerging, progressing, and proficient. Students who have 1s or 2s in all of their non-exempt domains are considered emerging. Students who have 4s or 5s in all non-exempt domains are proficient. All of the rest of the students are considered progressing. What you see here is an individual student report. Teachers will get a copy of this in the ILP for their ELs that are in their classroom. An ESL teacher will go over this with you. And this report includes scores in each domain of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And there's also a description of the expectations beside it. Again, 5 is the top score. Currently, ELs must score a 4 or above on all non-exempt domains to exit the ESL program. The scores and the ELPA 21 English Language Proficiency descriptors form the basis for developing goals and appropriate scaffolds in the classroom. This applies to direct service with an ESL teacher and or indirect service provided by a regular ed teacher in the regular ed classroom. When a student first comes to a school in the U.S., their first time at a U.S. school, they are administered a screener test. So you may have a student that you will receive a screener report for them rather than their last summative test results. Let's look at the service delivery program models. So the delivery type is where we're teaching the student, and the service model is how. So with co-teaching, this will be with an ESL teacher and a content teacher working together, co-planning, co-teaching, and co-assessing all of the students. Pull out means the ESL teacher is going to pull out the student, making sure that they don't miss specials, lunch, or recess. And some students may have a scheduled ELD course, and this is usually in the high school. We have service models. So for the sheltered English instruction, this is appropriate for levels 3 through 5, so intermediate to advanced. Pull out is appropriate for all levels. Structured English immersion. This is often for newcomers, and it makes sure that they have instructional and social language before they are then moved on to a different type of model, and usually in a regular ed classroom. And pull out. Content-based instruction is appropriate for levels 2 through 5, and it is strongly associated with co-teaching. Now let's look at the multimodality of communication. Communication comes in many forms, spoken and written. We want to make sure that we speak slowly, but not loudly. We also have hand signals and gestures, music, images, videos, and computer-mediated content. Equation maps, diagrams, and charts, and that's not just for math. Facial expressions and acting it out. So the classroom is a lot like charades. Be sure to enunciate and then summarize what you've said. Next, let's talk a little bit about integrating content and language. Academic content is the context for language learning, and language is the means for learning academic content. We also like the quote that grammar is a tool, not a topic. Now let's look at the stages of language acquisition. First, we have the pre-production or the silent period. This lasts from a day to up to 6 months. 500-word vocabulary. Students are absorbing. They're repeating a lot. And it can be very stressful because many times they cannot express their basic needs. Next, we have early production, in which students will speak in 1 or 2 word sentences. They have about 1,000-word vocabulary. Same content, but different presentation and assessment is required for these students. You want to check for understanding, so do informal assessment, and this period lasts about 6 months. Next, we have the speech emergence phase. This lasts about a year, 3,000-word vocabulary, and now they're able to speak in full sentences, and they're beginning to understand the global meaning, but not the details. Next, we have the intermediate fluency. They're able to express their opinions and have conversations, last about 2 years, 3,000-word vocabulary, and it's still important to have scaffolding for assignments. And next, finally, we have advanced fluency. In this stage, it lasts 4 to 10 years. The average to become fluent is 7 years. The average is 7 years. They feel as if English is their native language. They still need extra help. Just because you feel like they can understand everything you say does not mean that they don't need scaffolding. The student vocabulary will continue to increase. Now let's look at some of the teaching strategies that reach all of our students but are especially helpful for our ELs. First, let's look at culture studies. Everyone is proud of their culture. First, you assign as a classroom project. Each student researches and interviews their family members. Then they're going to make a presentation. They will take questions. And these type of projects really teach life skills that transcend content areas. So they're learning skills such as research, presentation, and then when they're taking those questions, that's interpersonal as well. Another important strategy is realia. This is using an actual object and is very effective because it is attaching the actual thing to the word in the target language. Another very useful strategy is the language experience approach. So the student's life experience become the class lesson. They will tell a story. A paraprofessional or the teacher writes the story down. Then I often have them rewrite it at home for homework. And then they come back and they read the story with assistance and then work towards reading it alone. Group work is crucial for learning. This is for all of our students, but especially for our ELs. You have face-to-face interactions, social friendships, projects. They're learning by observation, even with the ELs who are at a lower level. Next, we have TPR, which stands for Total Physical Response, and it integrates physical activity while learning. Think of this as a movement icon. So instead of having students write the vocabulary, they're saying the word and then acting it out. And this is a very effective way for them to learn. I also go like a step forward and have them do this as a competition. There is a plethora of supports that we need to give our ELs. Assign them a friend, give them extended time, write in print, use simplified language, give them preferential seating, which may not always be in the front, maybe with a friend. Access their prior knowledge. Smile, that's international. Know the student cultures, have a well-planned lesson, and be sure to have your procedures written down. ELL families are an essential part of their child's education, and they can also contribute to our classrooms. On the home language survey, parents will indicate if they need an interpreter. Contact me ahead of time for assistance. Be sure to translate emails and school communication using the tools provided by our district's ESL department. Some of the things to consider is to ask them to be chaperones, have welcome letters, attend their cultural events, and integrate their culture into your classroom. All decisions will be made by all of the stakeholders on the student's ILP. Thank you so much for your support. You do make a difference, and we just appreciate everything you do for all of your students.